Symbology of the Bible, Volume 2. Easter. The topic of Easter is an important discussion. Many may be aware of its pagan origins. However, many are not. Of those who do know, some say, "Leave it alone, it's for children." While on the surface, it seems harmless. The fact is, we need to heed the warning of Paul. Romans 11 verse 21. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. 22. Behold therefore the goodness and severity of God. On them which fell, severity. But toward thee, goodness, if thou continue in his goodness. Otherwise thou also shalt be cut off. 23. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted, for God is able to graft them in again. Respect Yahweh's wishes, and show that you understand that observing the law shows reverence, since once having knowledge, not doing so demonstrates disdain and uncaring. Here is some history of Easter.
Originally a Saxon word, Eos Tre, denoting a goddess of the Saxons, in honor of whom sacrifices were offered about the time of the Passover. Hence, the name came to be given to the festival of the resurrection of Christ, which occurred at the time of the Passover. In the early English versions, this word was frequently used as the translation of the Greek Pacha, the Passover. When the Authorized Version of 1611 was formed, the word Passover was used in all passages in which this word Pacha occurred, except in Acts 12 verse 4. In the Revised Version, the proper word, Passover, is always used.
Here is the verse referred to in the above citation, Acts 12 verse 4. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending, after Easter, to bring him forth to the people. Per Strong, the Greek word is, in fact, Pacha.
Pascha. Pacha, of Chaldee origin, compare H. 6453. Passover, the meal, the day, the festival or the special sacrifices connected with it, Easter. Passover.
So, the English word Easter was inserted by the KJV translators, since the festival of Easter was unknown in Jerusalem and the Christian communities of the time of Yahshua's sacrifice. We have a pagan festival that involved sacrifices to a pagan deity, becoming identified with the sacrifice of El's lamb, Yahshua, which established the Passover promise for all time. It seems that this would be an ultimate insult, as we will see below. More information on the origin of Easter follows.
Eos Tre, specialty definition. Eos Tre, from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Eos Tre is generally said to be an Anglo-Saxon goddess of dawn, also associated with various aspects related to the renewal of life, spring, fertility and the hair, to wit, quick and numerous reproduction. Though it has been said that she was sometimes depicted with a hare's head, no authentic animal-headed deities appear in Germanic or Celtic cult objects.
According to Bede, who died in 735 CE, writing in De Tempore Rationum, which translated is On the Reckoning of Time, Chapter 15, The English Months. The word is derived from Eos Tre, a festival that he connects with an Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring, to whom the month, answering to our April and called Eostermonath, was dedicated. Bede says, in olden times, the English calculated their months according to the course of the moon. Hence, after the manner of the Greeks and the Romans, the months take their name from the moon, for the moon is called Mona, and each month Monath. In some Germanic language-speaking regions, the people named the then unnamed Christian day after the goddess, that is, in English as Easter and in German as Ostern. Remnants of her characteristics can also be found in the Easter Bunny celebrations. The remnants referred to above are chocolate rabbits and Easter eggs, both fertility symbols. Thus, in reality, the Easter holiday is rooted in pagan fertility festivals. Also, her name originated in Old Teutonic, derived from the same root that gave the conjectural Ostern, meaning dawn. Later on, her name was spelled variously as Easter in Anglo-Saxon language and Easter in Northumbrian language. A revised etymology of estrus. The Latin meaning of estrus comes directly from Greek oistros, revived in 1890, to describe the female equivalent of rut. Estrus/oistros also meant frenzy. Estrus is an irrational drive, according to Plato, as recorded in Laws 854b. My good man, the evil force that now moves you and prompts you to go temple robbing is neither of human origin nor divine, but it is some impulse bred of old, in men from ancient wrongs unexpiated, which courses round, wreaking ruin, and it you must guard against with all your strength. The source continues with the following.
Easter, in the Authorized Version translation of the New Testament, Acts 12 verse 4, is simply an anachronistic mistranslation of the Greek Pacha, Passover, in which King James's committee followed such earlier translators as Tyndale and Coverdale. The Acts passage refers to the 7-day Passover festival, including the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It is reasonably certain that the New Testament contains no reference to a yearly celebration of the resurrection of Christ.
The word Easter can also be connected to a Babylonian goddess of fertility, Ishtar.
Definition: Ishtar, noun. 1. Babylonian and Assyrian, goddess of love and fertility and war. Counterpart of Ashtoreth and Astarte. Source: WordNet 1.7.1. Copyright 2001 by Princeton University. All rights reserved. Specialty definition: Ishtar. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Ishtar, the chief goddess of Babylonia and Assyria, the counterpart of the Phoenician Astarte. It is now generally recognized that the name is Semitic in its origin. Ishtar is the one goddess in the pantheon, who retains her independent position despite and throughout all changes that the Babylonian-Assyrian religion undergoes. Ashurbanipal, 7th century BC, mentions as the name of their deity Atur-Samain, i.e., Ishtar of the heavens. Ishtar is celebrated and invoked as the Great Mother, as the mistress of lands, as clothed in splendor and power. The most noteworthy myths describes her as passing through 7 gates into the netherworld.
Also, according to the AI overview, Astarte is the Greek form of the Phoenician goddess name Astarte, originating from Proto-Semitic Atart. She is like the Greek Aphrodite, who was later modeled after her. Among other attributes, Astarte was a goddess of sexuality and fertility. She represented carnal desire and procreation. And most interesting, according to the same source, Myths describe her falling from the sky like a star, reinforcing a celestial link. This attribute also mirrors the stars, as representing personages symbolically. It is supposed that the name Atart was traditionally formed by adding the Afrasiatic Semitic feminine suffix t to Atar. The Hebrew for Attar is
Atel.
In addition to the proper name, Atar is defined as left-handed. This brings a connotation of perhaps being on the left hand as opposed to the right hand. Furthermore, when we go to Strong's, we find that the first syllable, at, is from an unused root, perhaps meaning to move softly, and, as a noun, a necromancer, from their soft incantations. As an adverb, gently. The translators of the KJV interpret it as charmer, gently, secret, and softly. For the second syllable, there are multiple choices. However, an apt one is H8446, to meander, causatively guide, about, especially for trade or reconnoitering. We can even find a version of a word itself, defined as to close up or shut. All in all, it seems to suggest a charmer leading people around in a meandering manner to shut Yahshua out of the Passover. One other aspect of connecting Esther with a start is the position of some linguists, that the connection is the result of folk etymology. However, their own work is questionable. Following is a map purported to show the dispersion of peoples speaking Proto-Indo-European. It is stated that the split of Proto-Indo-European, PIE, into its modern branches wasn't a single explosion, but a series of migrations and gradual accents that eventually became entirely different languages. The source continues with the following.
Linguists generally agree on the order in which these daughter groups left the original homeland. 1. Anatolian, approximately 4000 BC, the first to leave. This group included Hittite, an extinct language that provided the smoking gun evidence for sounds like H2. 2. Tocharian, the next to diverge, migrating far east into what is now western China. 3. The main core. The remaining groups stayed together longer, which is why languages like Greek, Latin, and Sanskrit share more complex grammar with each other than they do with Hittite.
However, we have this from the AI overview.
The arrival of the first Greek-speaking people in Greece, often called Proto-Greeks, is generally dated to the late 3rd, early 2nd millennium BC, around 2200 to 1900 BC. This migration was part of a larger movement of Indo-European speakers across Eurasia that occurred during the Bronze Age. They encountered pre-existing Neolithic cultures, such as the Pelasgians, and eventually merged with them to form the foundation of Greek civilization.
And as for the Hittites
appeared in Anatolia as early as the late 3rd millennium BC, with the first clear historical evidence of their presence dating to the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC, around 2000 to 1900 BC.
Therefore, these two peoples are likely to have been contemporaneous immigrants to their respective regions. Also, the presence of other peoples, when they arrived, introduces the possibility that those languages were, in fact, the languages of the indigenous peoples. Per the overview, there is no direct evidence of the Piai language in the steppes, the proposed origin of the Greek and Hittite languages among others. It is a theory, pieced together via other anthropological methods. Given the similarity of those and other alphabets to the Proto-Canaanite with the westward migration, gives this scenario more weight. Any migrations from the steppes were not likely the languages found in the regions of their emigration. Returning to the original source, we have more information regarding Ishtar. Wandering through the world, Ashtar takes up a star that has fallen from the sky and consecrates it at Tyre. Also Astarte in Hebrew was the principal goddess of the Phoenicians. She was a lunar goddess and was adopted by the Egyptians. And one more piece of information. Traditional Satanists worship Astarte as Astaroth, a male or female deity of lust and sexuality. Today, she is the second name in an energy chant sometimes used in Wicca. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. That old serpent is smirking that people who are ignorant of the reality of Easter continue on that path like little children, skipping down the other road. It is an insult to Yahshua to overshadow and conflate his paying of our redemption price with a festival rooted in paganism and evil forces.